Hello, my name is Detective Sarah Chen, and I've been working homicide in this city for 12 years now. I've seen things that would make your stomach turn, cases that kept me awake for weeks, but nothing quite prepared me for what I'm about to tell you. This story begins on a cold Tuesday morning in March, when my phone rang at exactly 6:47 a.m. I was already awake, nursing my third cup of coffee and staring at old case files, the way I always do when sleep refuses to come. Detective Chen, I answered, my voice still rough from the sleepless night. Sarah, we've got a situation. It was Captain Morrison, and he sounded tired. Marcus Reeves, the tech blogger. You know him? Did I know him? Everyone knew Marcus Reeves. 3 million followers across social media platforms, known for exposing corporate corruption and reviewing the latest gadgets. His videos on smart home security had gone viral just last month. What about him? I asked, already reaching for my jacket. He's dead. Found in his apartment about an hour ago. Doors locked from the inside, windows secured, no signs of forced entry. The responding officers are calling it a suicide, but something doesn't feel right. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. Give me the address. I'll be there in 20 minutes. The drive through morning traffic gave me time to think. Marcus Reeves was 32 years old, at the peak of his career, recently engaged according to his Instagram posts. Didn't fit the typical suicide profile, but then again, you never really know what battles people are fighting behind closed doors. Social media is just a highlight reel, after all. His apartment was in the Meridian Tower, one of those new luxury buildings where every unit costs more than I'd make in 5 years. The lobby was all glass and chrome, with a doorman who looked like he'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. He pointed me toward the elevators with a somber expression. 15th floor, Unit 1507, he said quietly. Terrible business. Mr. Reeves was always so kind. The elevator ride felt longer than it should have. When the doors opened, I could already see the yellow crime scene tape stretched across the hallway. Officer Rodriguez stood outside the apartment, looking pale. Detective Chen, he nodded. I've been first on scene for a lot of calls, but this one, it's strange. Walk me through it, I said, ducking under the tape. Anonymous call came in at 5:30 a.m. Someone reported hearing a loud crash from this unit. We arrived at 5:47, knocked, no answer. Building manager let us in with the master key. Door was locked, security chain was engaged from the inside. We had to cut it to enter. I stepped into the apartment and immediately understood why Rodriguez looked so unsettled. The place was immaculate, like something out of an interior design magazine. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a stunning view of the city skyline, but they were all sealed shut, the kind that don't open for safety reasons in high-rises. Smart home panels were embedded in the walls, controlling everything from lighting to temperature. And there, in the middle of the living room, lay Marcus Reeves. He was face down on the hardwood floor, dressed in casual clothes, jeans and a black t-shirt. No visible signs of trauma from where I stood, but there was something off about the position of his body. His phone lay a few feet away, screen shattered. A laptop sat open on the coffee table, its screen dark. Medical examiner on the way? I asked. Should be here within the hour, Rodriguez confirmed. Detective, the thing is, we checked every inch of this place. All windows sealed, door locked from inside, no one hiding in closets or under the bed. If this was murder, the killer turned into a ghost. I've learned not to believe in ghosts. There's always an explanation, always a thread to pull that unravels the whole mystery. I just had to find it. I moved closer to the body, careful not to disturb anything. That's when I noticed it, a faint red mark on the side of his neck, barely visible. Not a bruise, more like a puncture wound. I made a mental note to point it out to me. Who found the body? I asked. We did, when we entered. But the anonymous caller, dispatch said it was a digitally altered voice, made the call from a burner phone that's already been disconnected. Now that was interesting. Someone wanted the body found, but didn't want to be identified. I stood up and surveyed the room again. Everything was too perfect, too staged. The laptop positioned just so, the phone with its cracked screen, even the way Marcus had fallen seemed somehow deliberate. My instincts were screaming that this was no suicide. This was murder, and someone had gone to great lengths to make it look like an impossible crime. The only question was, how? Part 2, the investigation begins. I spent the next 3 hours documenting every detail of Marcus Reeves' apartment. The crime scene photographer, Jenny Martinez, arrived shortly after I did, and together we captured hundreds of images from every conceivable angle. The medical examiner, Dr. Philip Hartman, showed up at 8:15 a.m., his usual punctual self despite the early morning call. "Sarah," he greeted me with a slight nod, already pulling on his latex gloves. Rodriguez briefed me on the phone. "Locked room mystery, is it?" "Seems that way," I replied, gesturing toward the body. "But there's something on his neck, right side. Looks like a puncture mark." Dr. Hartman knelt beside Marcus Reeves and carefully examined the mark I'd indicated. His eyebrows rose slightly. "Good eye, detective. This is definitely a puncture wound, fresh, probably within the last 12 hours. Could be from an injection." "Injection of what?" "Won't know until I get him back to the lab and run a full tox screen. But if I had to guess based on the lack of struggle and the position of the body, we might be looking at some kind of fast-acting paralytic or sedative. Something that would have dropped him quickly." That changed everything. Suicides don't inject themselves with paralytics. This was definitely murder. But the question remained, how did the killer get in and out of a locked apartment? While Dr. Hartman continued his preliminary examination, I turned my attention to Marcus's smart home system. The main control panel was embedded in the wall near the entrance, a sleek touchscreen interface that controlled everything from the thermostat to the security cameras. I tapped the screen, and it lit up, requiring a password. "Rodriguez, did the building manager mention anything about the smart home system?" "He said Mr. Reeves was obsessed with security. Had top-of-the-line everything. Cameras in every room except the bedroom and bathroom, motion sensors, smart locks, the works. All controlled through that panel and his phone." I looked at the shattered phone on the floor. That wasn't an accident. Someone had wanted to destroy whatever data was on that device. I bagged it carefully, maybe the tech team could recover something from the damaged hardware. "I need to speak with the building manager," I said. "And I want the security footage from every camera in this building for the last 24 hours. Lobby, elevators, hallways, parking garage, everything." Rodriguez nodded and stepped out to make the calls. I continued my examination of the apartment. The kitchen was spotless, not a dish out of place. The refrigerator was well stocked with healthy food, fresh vegetables, lean proteins, expensive imported cheeses. A half-empty bottle of wine sat on the counter, next to 2 glasses. 2 glasses. "Dr. Hartman," I called out, "was there anyone else here? Any signs of a second person?" He looked up from his examination. "No obvious signs of a struggle or defensive wounds on the victim. But we'll check for trace evidence back at the lab, fibers, hair, DNA. If someone else was here, we'll find it." I photographed the wine glasses and bagged them for analysis. Then I moved to the bedroom. The bed was made with military precision, not a wrinkle in sight. The closet was organized by color and style. This was someone who liked control, order. On the nightstand sat a framed photo of Marcus with a beautiful woman, both of them smiling on a beach somewhere tropical. His fiancée, I assumed. The bathroom yielded more interesting details. The medicine cabinet contained the usual items, toothpaste, deodorant, cologne, but also a prescription bottle for zolpidem, a sleep medication. The label indicated it had been filled 3 weeks ago, with 14 pills remaining out of 30. So Marcus had trouble sleeping. stress, anxiety, or something more? I returned to the living room just as the building manager arrived, a nervous-looking man in his 50s named Gerald Patterson. He wrung his hands as he spoke, clearly distressed by the situation. "Detective, this is terrible, just terrible. Mr. Reeves was one of our best tenants. Never any complaints, always paid rent on time, very quiet. Mr. Patterson, I need access to the building's security system. All camera footage from the last 24 hours, and I need information about Mr. Reeves' smart home setup." Of course, of course. The security footage is all digital, stored on our server. I can get you access immediately. As for the smart home system, Mr. Reeves had a premium package from Secure Life Systems. Everything integrated: locks, cameras, environmental controls. He could monitor and control everything from his phone or the wall panel. Did anyone else have access to his apartment? Cleaning service, maintenance, anyone? Patterson shook his head. No cleaning service. Mr. Reeves preferred to maintain his privacy. As for maintenance, we only enter units with explicit permission or in emergencies. Our records show no maintenance calls from Unit 1507 in the last 6 months. I thanked Patterson and sent him to provide Rodriguez with access to the security system. Then I turned my attention back to the smart home panel. This system was the key to everything. If the killer couldn't get in through the door or windows, maybe they got in electronically. I pulled out my phone and called Marcus Kim, our department's tech specialist. He answered on the second ring, sounding far too cheerful for this early in the morning. "Detective Chen. What can I do for you on this fine Tuesday?" "Marcus, I need you at a crime scene. Meridian Tower, Unit 1507. Bring your laptop and every hacking tool you've got. I need you to crack a smart home system." "Ooh, now we're talking. Give me 30 minutes. Part 3, Digital Footprints. Marcus Kim arrived exactly 29 minutes later, carrying a backpack that probably cost more than my car and wearing a t-shirt that read, "There's no place like 127.0.0.1. He was in his late 20s, brilliant with technology but completely hopeless at social interaction. Exactly the kind of person I needed right now. "Detective Chen," he said, his eyes lighting up as he surveyed the smart home panel. "Secure Life Systems, Model SL 9000. This is top-tier stuff. Encrypted, biometric authentication, the works. Whoever installed this knew what they were doing. Can you get into it?" I asked. Marcus grinned. "Is that even a question? Give me some time." While Marcus set up his equipment, I reviewed the preliminary security footage that Patterson had provided. The lobby cameras showed Marcus entering the building alone at 6:30 p.m. the previous evening, carrying a bag from an upscale grocery store. He nodded to the doorman and headed straight for the elevators. At 7:15 p.m., a delivery person dropped off a package at the front desk. I made a note to check what that was. At 8:45 p.m., a woman entered the building, spoke briefly with the doorman, and took the elevator up. According to the timestamp on the elevator camera, she went to the 15th floor. "Rodriguez," I called out, "who's the woman who came in at 8:45 last night?" He checked his notes. The doorman identified her as Jessica Winters, Mr. Reeves' fiancée. "She has building access. Left again at 10:30 p.m., looked upset according to the doorman." Interesting. So Jessica was possibly the last person to see Marcus alive, and she left upset. That definitely warranted a conversation. I made her next on my list of interviews. The elevator footage showed Jessica leaving the building at 10:30, just as the doorman had said. She was wiping her eyes, clearly crying. After that, no one entered or exited the 15th floor until the police arrived at 5:47 a.m. The hallway camera showed Marcus's door remaining closed the entire time. No one went in, no one came out. "Detective, I'm in," Marcus announced triumphantly. "Man, this system is sweet. Full encryption, but the biometric lock had a firmware vulnerability. Amateur hour, really. They patched it in the latest update, but Mr. Reeves never installed the patch. The smart home panel screen flashed to life, showing a dashboard of controls and logs. Marcus's fingers flew across his keyboard, pulling up data streams. Okay, so here's what we've got. The system logs every interaction, door locks, window sensors, camera activations, everything. Let me pull up yesterday's timeline. He tapped a few more keys. Front door was locked at 6:35 p.m. when Mr. Reeves came home. Security chain was engaged at 6:37 p.m. Door unlocked at 8:47 p.m., that would be when Ms. Winters arrived. Relocked at 10:33 p.m. when she left. Security chain re-engaged at 10:34 p.m. And, that's it. No more activity on the door until the police arrived. What about the windows? I asked. All sealed, no activity recorded. These are passive sensors though, they'd only trigger if someone tried to open them. And before you ask, the building has external cameras, and Patterson already confirmed no one rappelled down from the roof or climbed up from below. We're on the 15th floor, that would be quite a feat. I stared at the screen, frustrated. Every logical point of entry was accounted for and secure. What about the internal cameras? Can we see what happened inside the apartment? Marcus's expression darkened. That's where it gets weird. The internal cameras stopped recording at 11:47 p.m. Just stopped. The system logs show they went offline, all 4 cameras simultaneously. That's not a coincidence, I muttered. Can you tell what caused it? Working on it. His fingers danced across the keyboard again. Okay, here's something. At 11:46 p.m., there was a remote access login to the system. Someone connected from an external IP address and authenticated using, holy crap, they had Mr. Reeves' admin credentials. Meaning what, exactly? Meaning someone knew his username and password for the smart home system. They logged in remotely and disabled the cameras. After that, they could have unlocked the door, disabled the sensors, basically had full control of the apartment's security. Finally, a break. Can you trace that IP address? Marcus was already on it. It's bounced through several proxy servers, but yeah, give me some time and I can track it down. Whoever did this knew what they were doing, but nobody's invisible online. Everyone leaves traces. Dr. Hartman approached, removing his gloves. Detective, I'm ready to transport the body. Preliminary findings suggest death occurred between midnight and 2 a.m. The puncture wound on his neck definitely contained some foreign substance. We'll know more after the autopsy and tox screen. I'll have those results for you by tomorrow morning. I thanked him and watched as the body was carefully loaded onto a gurney and wheeled out. The apartment felt even emptier now, like a stage after the performance had ended. Marcus, I need everything this system recorded yesterday. Every door opening, every camera feed, every sensor activation. And find me that IP address. You got it, Detective. My phone rang, it was Captain Morrison. Sarah, how's it looking? It's murder, Captain. Sophisticated, premeditated. Killer accessed the victim's smart home system remotely, disabled security, probably let themselves in. We're tracing the digital footprint now. Good work. The media's already gotten wind of this. Marcus Reeves was high profile, we're going to have reporters crawling all over this case. I need results, and I need them fast. Part 4, The Fiancé. Jessica Winters lived in a trendy loft in the Arts District, about 20 minutes from Marcus's apartment. I called ahead to let her know I was coming, and her voice on the phone was hollow, emotionless, the sound of someone still in shock. By the time I arrived at noon, she had composed herself somewhat, though her eyes were red and swollen from crying. She answered the door wearing yoga pants and an oversized sweatshirt, her blonde hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. The loft was filled with natural light from massive windows, and every surface seemed to display photographs of her and Marcus, hiking in mountains, dining at fancy restaurants, laughing on beaches. The life they had built together, now shattered. "Detective Chen," she said softly, stepping aside to let me in. "I still can't believe this is real. I keep expecting him to call me, you know. To tell me it's all some terrible mistake. I'm very sorry for your loss, Ms. Winters. I know this is difficult, but I need to ask you some questions about last night." She nodded and gestured to a cream-colored couch. We sat, and she clutched a tissue in her hands, twisting it nervously. "I'll tell you whatever I can. I want to help find out what happened to Marcus." I pulled out my notebook. "You visited Marcus last night at approximately 8:45 p.m. Can you tell me about that visit?" Jessica's eyes filled with tears again. "We had plans for dinner, but Marcus cancelled at the last minute. He said he had work to do, some big exposé he was preparing. I was frustrated. He'd been cancelling plans a lot lately, always stressed about work. So I went over there to talk to him, to tell him that we needed to find better balance in our lives." "How did that conversation go?" "Not well," she admitted, dabbing at her eyes. "He was distracted, kept checking his phone, barely listened to me. We argued. I told him I couldn't marry someone who put their work before everything else. He said I didn't understand the importance of what he was doing, that he was about to expose something huge. I asked him what it was, but he wouldn't tell me. Said it was safer if I didn't know." "That was interesting. Did he seem afraid? Threatened?" "Now that you mention it, yes. He was anxious, kept looking at his security camera feeds on his phone. I thought he was just being paranoid. Marcus was always worried about security after some of his more controversial videos. He'd gotten death threats before." "Death threats? From whom?" "Mostly anonymous online trolls, but there were a few specific incidents. About 6 months ago, he did an investigative piece on Zenith Corporation. They make smart home devices. He found security vulnerabilities in their products and exposed how they were collecting user data without proper consent. The CEO, Richard Thornton, was furious. Threatened to sue Marcus for defamation, though nothing ever came of it." I wrote down the name. Zenith Corporation would definitely warrant investigation. "What time did you leave last night?" "Around 10:30. I was angry, hurt. I told Marcus to call me when he figured out his priorities, and I left. God, I wish I'd stayed. Maybe if I'd been there." Her voice broke. "Ms. Winters, there's nothing you could have done. This was a carefully planned murder." I paused, watching her reaction. "We believe someone gained remote access to Marcus's smart home system and disabled his security before entering the apartment." Her eyes widened in shock. "But Marcus was obsessive about security. He changed his passwords every week, used two-factor authentication, had the best encryption money could buy. How could someone hack his system?" "We're working on that." "Did Marcus ever mention anyone who might have had access to his login credentials? Anyone he shared passwords with?" "Never. He was paranoid about that. He didn't even tell me his passwords." She thought for a moment. "Wait, there was one person, Ethan Marsh, his assistant. He helped Marcus with tech stuff sometimes, equipment setup, that kind of thing. But Ethan would never hurt Marcus. They were friends." "Another name for my list. I'll need to speak with Mr. Marsh. Can you provide his contact information?" Jessica nodded and pulled out her phone, sending me Ethan's details. Then she looked at me with desperate eyes. "Detective, was it quick? Did he suffer?" I chose my words carefully. "The medical examiner believes it was very fast. Marcus wouldn't have suffered long." It was a small comfort, but she seemed to grasp onto it. We talked for another 20 minutes. I asked about Marcus's recent behavior, his work projects, anyone who might have wished him harm. She mentioned a few names, mostly business rivals and people Marcus had exposed in his investigative videos, but no one stood out as an obvious suspect. As I was preparing to leave, Jessica said something that made me pause. "Detective, there's one more thing. About 3 weeks ago, Marcus started acting really strange. He installed extra locks on his apartment door, started sleeping with a baseball bat next to his bed. He told me someone had been following him, watching his apartment. I thought he was being paranoid, but now. Did he report this to the police?" He said he tried, but they told him there wasn't enough evidence to investigate. No proof anyone was actually following him. I made a note to check if there were any reports filed under Marcus's name. As I headed back to my car, my mind was racing. Marcus had been afraid of something or someone in the weeks leading up to his death. He was working on a major exposé. Someone had hacked his supposedly impenetrable smart home system and murdered him in a locked room. The pieces were there, but I couldn't quite see how they fit together yet. Part 5, The Assistant's Story. Ethan Marsh agreed to meet me at a coffee shop near his apartment in the University District. He was 26, with the kind of nervous energy that suggested too much caffeine and not enough sleep. When I arrived, he was already there, hunched over a laptop at a corner table, his leg bouncing anxiously. "Mr. Marsh," I said, sliding into the seat across from him. "Thank you for meeting with me." He looked up, his eyes red-rimmed. "Ethan, please. I still can't process this. Marcus he was my mentor, my friend. Who would do this? That's what I'm trying to find out. I understand you worked closely with Marcus, helped him with technical aspects of his work." Ethan nodded, closing his laptop. "I've been his assistant for about 2 years. Started as an intern, then he hired me full-time. I helped with research, equipment setup, video editing, that sort of thing. Marcus taught me everything I know about investigative journalism." "Did Marcus share his passwords with you? Give you access to his systems?" "God, no. Marcus was hardcore about security. He had a zero-trust policy, didn't share credentials with anyone. Even when I needed to access files for editing, he'd use a separate sharing system with limited permissions. I never had access to his main accounts or his smart home system." That aligned with what Jessica had told me. "Tell me about the project Marcus was working on before he died." Jessica mentioned he was preparing a major exposé. Ethan's expression shifted, became guarded. He'd been working on something big for about a month, but he wouldn't tell me details. That was unusual. Normally he'd bounce ideas off me, ask for research help. But with this one, he was secretive. Paranoid, even. Paranoid how? He started insisting we only communicate through encrypted messaging apps. He'd check his apartment for bugs regularly. He told me he was being followed, that someone was trying to intimidate him into dropping the story. About 2 weeks ago, someone broke into his car, didn't steal anything, just left a note. I leaned forward. "What did the note say?" Marcus never told me exactly, but it shook him up badly. After that, he upgraded all his security systems, installed new cameras, changed all his passwords. He was scared, Detective. Really scared. Do you have any idea what the exposé was about? Who it might have targeted? Ethan hesitated, glancing around the coffee shop as if checking for eavesdroppers. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "I'm not supposed to know this, but I overheard a phone conversation about 3 days ago. Marcus was arguing with someone, telling them he had proof of illegal surveillance. Something about smart home devices being used to spy on users, selling private data to third parties. He mentioned Zenith Corporation specifically. There was that name again. Zenith Corporation, the company Marcus had exposed 6 months earlier. Did he mention any names? Anyone specific at Zenith? Just the CEO, Richard Thornton. Marcus said Thornton had personally threatened him, told him there would be consequences if he continued investigating. But Marcus wasn't the type to back down from threats. If anything, it made him more determined. I made detailed notes. This was starting to form a clearer picture. Marcus had been investigating Zenith Corporation, had evidence of illegal activity, and had received threats. Someone at Zenith might have decided to silence him permanently. Ethan, did Marcus store his research files anywhere you might be able to access? Cloud storage, external drives. He used an encrypted cloud service, but like I said, I never had access. However, he paused, seeming to wrestle with something. There's a safe in his office. Well, not really an office, he converted his apartment's second bedroom into a workspace. He kept backup drives there, documents, the works. Combination lock, old school. He didn't trust digital locks anymore. Did anyone know the combination? Just Marcus, as far as I know. Jessica might have known it, but I doubt it. He was protective of his research. We talked for another hour. Ethan gave me details about Marcus's work habits, his recent projects, the people he'd been in contact with. He also provided me with names of other journalists Marcus had collaborated with, people who might have insight into what he'd been investigating. As we were wrapping up, Ethan said something that caught my attention. "Detective, there's something else. It's probably nothing, but about a week ago, Marcus told me he'd made a dead man's switch." "A what?" It's a security measure. Basically, if something happened to him, if he didn't check in at regular intervals, his research files would automatically be sent to a list of journalists and law enforcement officials. He said it was insurance, to make sure his work would get out even if someone tried to stop him. This was huge. Do you know if that switch has been triggered? I have no idea how it worked or where the files would be sent. Marcus set it up himself, didn't tell me any details. I thanked Ethan and left the coffee shop with my head spinning. Marcus Reeves had been investigating a powerful corporation, had received threats, had created a failsafe to protect his work, and then had been murdered in what appeared to be an impossible crime. The question was, had his dead man's switch actually worked? And if so, where were the files? Part 6, Corporate Connections. Back at the precinct, I found Marcus Kim hunched over his workstation, surrounded by energy drink cans and takeout containers. He barely looked up when I approached. "Tell me you have good news," I said. "Better than good." I traced that IP address that accessed Marcus Reeves' smart home system. It bounced through 6 different countries and 3 VPN services, but I followed the digital breadcrumbs. Guess where it originated? Don't keep me in suspense. Corporate network for Zenith Corporation. Specifically, their cybersecurity division. I felt a surge of excitement. We had a direct connection between Zenith and the murder. Can you identify which computer on their network? Working on it, but their internal security is serious. I'll need a warrant to get access to their server logs, and even then, it's going to take time to narrow down the specific machine and user. What can you tell me about Zenith Corporation? Marcus pulled up a file on his screen. Major player in the smart home industry. They make everything, smart locks, cameras, thermostats, the works. Publicly traded, market cap around $12 billion. CEO is Richard Thornton, former tech executive who took over Zenith 5 years ago. Under his leadership, the company has grown exponentially, but there have been rumors of questionable business practices. What kind of rumors? Data privacy violations, mostly. There was a class action lawsuit 2 years ago claiming Zenith was collecting audio recordings from their smart speakers without user consent. They settled out of court for an undisclosed amount. Then Marcus Reeves did that exposé 6 months ago, showing security vulnerabilities in their products. Their stock dropped 15% after that video went viral. So they had motive to silence him. Definitely. But here's what's really interesting. Marcus clicked to another screen. I did some digging into Zenith's recent activities. 3 months ago, they acquired a small startup called Black Box Security. This company specialized in surveillance technology, not the consumer stuff, but government and corporate-grade surveillance. The kind of tech intelligence agencies use. Why would a consumer electronics company need that technology? Marcus shrugged. Good question. The acquisition was quiet, didn't get much press. But if you combine Black Box's surveillance capabilities with Zenith's massive install base of consumer devices, you've got a potential surveillance network in millions of homes. And Marcus figured this out. Looks like it. I also found something on Marcus's laptop. He pulled up a recovered file. Your tech team managed to extract data from his damaged phone. There are encrypted messages between Marcus and an anonymous source, someone with the handle Nighthawk. This person was feeding Marcus internal documents from Zenith, proof of illegal data collection and surveillance. I leaned closer to read the messages. They were careful, vague, but the implication was clear: someone inside Zenith was acting as a whistleblower, providing Marcus with evidence that could bring down the company. Can we identify Nighthawk? Not yet. They were using military-grade encryption and routing their messages through the Tor network. Whoever this is knows how to stay anonymous. My phone rang. It was Captain Morrison. Chen, we've got a problem. Richard Thornton's lawyers just called. They heard we're investigating their company in connection with the Reeves murder. They're threatening to sue the department for harassment unless we have concrete evidence. We have concrete evidence that the killer accessed the victim's smart home system from Zenith's corporate network. That's not enough to get a warrant for their entire company. We need something more specific. A direct connection to Thornton or someone on his staff. I cursed under my breath. He was right. Give me 24 hours, Captain. I'll get you that connection. After hanging up, I turned back to Marcus Kim. I need everything you can find on Richard Thornton and his executive team. Phone records, financial transactions, social media, everything. Someone at that company is dirty, and I'm going to prove it. On it, Marcus said, his fingers already flying across his keyboard. I spent the rest of the afternoon reviewing files. Marcus Reeves had been thorough in his investigation, and the recovered data from his devices painted a damning picture of Zenith Corporation. They had been secretly using their smart home devices to collect audio and video recordings from users' homes, then selling that data to third parties, advertising companies, insurance agencies, even law enforcement without proper warrants. But it went deeper than that. The black box security acquisition had given them access to advanced surveillance technology, which they were integrating into their consumer products. Essentially, they were turning millions of homes into unwitting surveillance stations. If this information went public, Zenith would face billions in lawsuits, potential criminal charges, and complete destruction of their business. More than enough motive for murder. At 6 p.m., I received a call from Dr. Hartman. Detective, I have the autopsy results. You were right about the injection. Marcus Reeves was injected with a compound called tetrodotoxin. What's that? It's a powerful neurotoxin found in certain fish, particularly pufferfish. In the right dosage, it causes paralysis and respiratory failure within minutes. There's no antidote. It's incredibly rare and difficult to obtain legally. How would someone get their hands on it? That's the question. It's not something you can buy at your local pharmacy. You'd need connections to either specialized research facilities or the black market. I'm sending my full report over now. Another piece of the puzzle. The killer had used a sophisticated poison, had access to advanced hacking capabilities, and had connections to a major corporation. This wasn't some random crime of passion. This was professional, calculated. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus Kim. Found something. You need to see this. Now. Part 7, The Inside Man. I rushed back to Marcus Kim's workstation. He looked pale, his usual enthusiasm replaced with something that looked like fear. What did you find? I asked. He pulled up a series of financial records on his screen. I hacked into I mean, I legally access through proper channels, some financial databases. Look at this. He pointed to a transaction record. 2 weeks ago, someone transferred $50,000 to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. The transfer originated from a personal account belonging to David Chen, Zenith Corporation's chief technology officer. Okay, but that's not necessarily illegal. Could be investments, savings. Wait, there's more. Marcus clicked to another screen. That offshore account? It was set up 3 months ago by a company called Ghost Protocol LLC. Want to guess who the registered agent for Ghost Protocol is? Enlighten me. Ethan Marsh. Marcus Reeves' assistant. My stomach dropped. Ethan. The nervous young man I'd interviewed that morning, who'd seemed so genuinely grief-stricken. Are you certain? I triple-checked. It's definitely him. And here's where it gets really interesting. Marcus pulled up another document. Ghost Protocol LLC received a payment of $100,000 yesterday morning at 9 a.m., 7 hours after Marcus Reeves was murdered. The payment came from the same offshore account that David Chen funded. My mind was racing. So David Chen, Zenith CTO, paid Ethan Marsh through a shell company. Ethan had access to Marcus, knew his routines, his security measures. He could have obtained Marcus's login credentials. Exactly what I was thinking, Marcus said. But wait, there's one more thing. I recovered deleted files from Marcus Reeves' laptop. He'd been investigating David Chen specifically, had documented evidence that Chen was the one implementing the illegal surveillance programs at Zenith. Chen wasn't just following orders, he was the architect of the whole operation. And if Marcus exposed him, Chen would face criminal charges. Prison time. I pulled out my phone. I need a warrant for David Chen's arrest and for Ethan Marsh's financial records. This is our connection. But even as I said it, something didn't feel right. The evidence was almost too clean, too obvious. In my experience, criminals who are sophisticated enough to hack smart home systems and use exotic poisons don't leave such an easy trail of financial transactions. Unless. Marcus, I said slowly, could someone have planted this evidence? Made it look like Chen and Ethan were responsible. He frowned, considering. It's possible. The financial records are real, I verified them through multiple sources. But if someone had access to Chen's accounts and knew about Ethan's shell company, they could have used them as patsies. My phone rang. It was Rodriguez. Detective, we've got a situation. Ethan Marsh just showed up at the precinct. He says he needs to talk to you immediately. Says his life is in danger and he knows who killed Marcus Reeves. I'm on my way. When I arrived at the precinct 15 minutes later, Ethan was in interview room 2, looking even more terrified than he had at the coffee shop. His hands were shaking, and he kept glancing at the door as if expecting someone to burst through it. Ethan, I said, sitting across from him, what's going on? I lied to you earlier, he said, his voice barely steady. Not about everything, but about some things. I do know what Marcus was investigating, and I do know who killed him. And now they're after me too. Start from the beginning. Tell me everything. Ethan took a deep breath. 3 months ago, Marcus received a message from someone claiming to be a whistleblower at Zenith Corporation. This person, Nighthawk, said they had proof that Zenith was using their smart home devices for illegal surveillance. Marcus was skeptical at first, but then Nighthawk started sending documents, internal memos, source code. It was all real. Go on. Marcus asked me to help verify the documents, make sure they weren't forgeries. That's how I got involved. The deeper we dug, the worse it got. Zenith wasn't just collecting data, they were selling access to people's homes to the highest bidder. Private security firms, corporate competitors, even foreign governments. They'd installed backdoors in millions of devices. And David Chen was behind this? Chen was involved, but he wasn't the mastermind. That was Richard Thornton, the CEO. He saw an opportunity to turn Zenith into something bigger than a consumer electronics company. He wanted to build a surveillance empire. I leaned forward. Ethan, I know about Ghost Protocol LLC. I know about the payments from David Chen's account. His eyes widened in shock. What? No, that's not, I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me. Your name is on the registration documents for Ghost Protocol. That's impossible. He was genuinely panicked now. I've never registered any company, I don't have any offshore accounts. Someone is setting me up. I studied his face carefully. Either he was an exceptional actor, or he was telling the truth. If you didn't register Ghost Protocol, who did? I don't know, but I can guess. Someone who wanted to frame me for Marcus's murder. Someone who knew I was helping Marcus with his investigation. He pulled out his phone with shaking hands. Look, I recorded something last night. After you left the coffee shop, I went home and found this pushed under my door. He showed me a photo on his phone. It was a note, typed on plain paper, stop talking to the police or you'll end up like Marcus. This is your only warning. Why didn't you call me immediately? Because I was terrified. I didn't know if the police were compromised. Zenith has connections everywhere, politicians, law enforcement, the media. I spent all night trying to figure out what to do, and then I realized, the only way I'm safe is if this all goes public. If everyone knows the truth, they can't silence me. What truth, Ethan? What exactly did Marcus discover? Zenith's surveillance network isn't just about selling data. They're using it for corporate espionage, blackmail, even insider trading. They've been spying on business executives, recording their private conversations, then using that information to manipulate stock prices. Marcus had proof, recordings, financial transactions, everything. Where is this proof? That's the thing. Marcus had a dead man's switch, like I told you. If he didn't check in every 12 hours, all his files would be automatically distributed to a list of journalists and law enforcement agencies. But the switch never triggered. What do you mean? I mean someone stopped it. Marcus's system required him to enter a code every 12 hours. If he missed 3 consecutive check-ins, the files would be sent. But according to the system logs I accessed, someone entered the code at 2 a.m. last night, 2 hours after Marcus was already dead. The implications hit me like a truck. Someone had Marcus's access codes. They killed him, then prevented his dead man's switch from activating. Exactly. And there's only one way they could have gotten those codes. Ethan's voice dropped to a whisper. Marcus stored them in his safe, the one in his home office. Whoever killed him also accessed that safe. Part 8, Breaking Point. I immediately called for a forensics team to return to Marcus Reeves' apartment and examine the safe in his home office. If someone had accessed it, there would be evidence, fingerprints, tool marks, something. But I had a sinking feeling that whoever had planned this so carefully wouldn't have left obvious traces. While we waited for the forensics report, I had Ethan placed in protective custody. Whether he was telling the truth or not, he was either a suspect or a target, and either way, I needed him where I could keep an eye on him. Captain Morrison called me into his office. He looked exhausted, the stress of the high-profile case clearly weighing on him. Chen, I just got off the phone with the commissioner. Zenith Corporation's legal team is breathing down our necks. They're claiming this is a witch hunt, that we're harassing a legitimate business without evidence. Captain, we have evidence that the killer accessed Marcus's smart home system from Zenith's corporate network. We have financial records connecting their CTO to a potential conspiracy. We have testimony that Zenith was engaged in illegal surveillance and corporate espionage. Testimony from a suspect who conveniently showed up claiming he's being framed. Financial records that could have been fabricated. And an IP address that could have been spoofed. He held up a hand before I could protest. I'm not saying I don't believe you, Sarah. I'm saying that Zenith's lawyers will tear apart every piece of evidence we have unless it's absolutely ironclad. Then let me go talk to David Chen directly. Put pressure on him, see if he cracks. Morrison considered this. You'll have to be careful. The moment you approach him, his lawyers will be all over it. But yes, do it. We need a break in this case. I left the precinct and headed to Zenith Corporation's headquarters, a gleaming glass tower in the financial district. The building was impressive, all modern architecture and expensive art in the lobby. The receptionist was professionally polite but firm. I would need an appointment to see Mr. Chen. I showed her my badge. This is police business. Tell Mr. Chen that Detective Sarah Chen is here to discuss Marcus Reeves, and if he doesn't want me to come back with a warrant and a dozen officers, he'll see me now. 5 minutes later, I was being escorted to the top floor. David Chen's office had a view that probably cost more than my annual salary. The man himself was in his early 40s, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, with the kind of calm confidence that came from wealth and power. Detective Chen, he said, not rising from his chair. I assume this is about Marcus Reeves. Terrible tragedy. The company sends its condolences to his family. Cut the corporate speak, Mr. Chen. I know about the illegal surveillance. I know about the data you've been collecting and selling. And I know about the payments you made to an offshore account linked to Ethan Marsh. His expression didn't change, but I saw something flicker in his eyes. I'm afraid you're mistaken. Zenith Corporation operates within all applicable laws and regulations. As for any personal financial transactions, I'm not required to discuss those with you without a warrant. Marcus Reeves was going to expose you. He had evidence of everything, the surveillance, the corporate espionage, the whole operation. So you had him killed. That's a serious accusation, detective, and completely unfounded. I had nothing to do with Mr. Reeves' death. In fact, I respected his work, even when he criticized our company. That's how business works, not everyone will like your products, and that's fine. Someone accessed his smart home system from your company's network. They disabled his security and murdered him. Are you telling me that's a coincidence? Chen leaned back in his chair, finally showing a hint of emotion, amusement. Detective, do you know how many people work for Zenith Corporation? Over 5,000 employees worldwide. Any one of them could have accessed our network. If indeed someone did use our systems for illegal purposes, I assure you will cooperate fully with your investigation to identify them. He was too smooth, too prepared. This wasn't a man caught off guard. Where were you between midnight and 2 a.m. yesterday? At home, asleep. My wife can confirm that. And I'm sure she will. How convenient. I stood up, leaning on his desk. Here's what I think happened. Marcus Reeves was about to destroy your company. You couldn't let that happen, so you arranged his murder. You used your own systems to make it look like it came from inside Zenith, knowing you could blame it on any one of your thousands of employees. You paid off Ethan Marsh to help you get Marcus's security credentials, then you framed him to take the fall. Chen smiled, and it was the smile of someone who knew they'd already won. That's an interesting theory, detective. Unfortunately for you, theories aren't evidence. Now, if you don't have any actual proof of these wild accusations, I think we're done here. My lawyers will be in touch with your department about this harassment. As I was being escorted out, my phone buzzed with a text from Marcus Kim, DNA results back from wine glasses in Marcus's apartment. You need to see this. Back at the precinct, Marcus showed me the lab report. The wine glasses you found both had Marcus's DNA on them, as expected. But one glass also had traces of tetrodotoxin, the poison that killed him. So the killer drugged his wine. Here's the weird part. The glass with the poison was the one Marcus drank from. But there was something else in the wine, a sedative that would have knocked him out before the tetrodotoxin took full effect. He wouldn't have suffered. Why would a killer care about whether the victim suffered? Marcus shrugged. Mercy? Guilt? Or maybe they wanted to make sure Marcus was unconscious so he couldn't fight back or trigger any alarms. I thought about the crime scene, about Jessica Winters crying as she left the apartment at 10:30 p.m. About Ethan Marsh's terror when he came to the precinct. About David Chen's smug confidence. And then I thought about something that had been bothering me since the beginning: why would a killer go to such elaborate lengths to make this look like a locked room mystery? Why not just make it look like a simple break-in, a robbery gone wrong? Unless the locked room wasn't meant to hide the killer's identity. What if it was meant to hide something else entirely? Marcus, I said slowly, can you pull up the building security footage again? I want to see something. He brought up the video files. I watched Jessica Winters enter the building at 8:45 p.m., take the elevator to the 15th floor. I watched her leave at 10:30 p.m., crying. And then I watched the hallway camera footage, Marcus's door remaining closed, no one entering or exiting until the police arrived. Can you enhance this? I pointed to a moment at 11:52 p.m. What's that in the corner of the frame? Marcus zoomed in and enhanced the image. It was small, barely visible in the low light of the hallway. A tiny quadcopter drone, no bigger than my hand, hovering near the ceiling. Oh my God, Marcus whispered. That's a micro-drone. Military grade, probably. They're nearly silent and almost invisible on security cameras if you're not looking for them. Can drones carry payloads? Absolutely. Something that size could easily carry a small package. Or a syringe with poison. Suddenly, everything clicked into place. The locked room wasn't impossible at all. The killer hadn't entered through the door or windows. They'd used a drone, small enough to fit through the ventilation system, controlled remotely. They could have injected Marcus with the poison and flown back out, leaving no trace except for a few seconds of barely visible footage. I need you to check something, I told Marcus urgently. Marcus Reeves' apartment, does it have a smart ventilation system? He pulled up the building specs. Yes, networked HVAC system. You can control temperature and airflow through the smart home interface. Could someone remotely open the ventilation ducts? If they had access to the system, absolutely. We had our answer. But we still needed to know who had controlled the drone. And more importantly, we needed to understand why Marcus Reeves had been so carefully, so elaborately murdered. Part 9, The Truth Reveals Itself. The next morning, I received a call that changed everything. It was from a lawyer named Patricia Hernandez, representing someone who wanted to meet with me. She wouldn't say who over the phone, only that her client had information about the Marcus Reeves case and wanted immunity in exchange for testimony. We met at a small law office in the business district. Patricia Hernandez was a sharp woman in her 50s, the kind of attorney who commanded respect the moment she entered a room. But it was her client who shocked me. Jessica Winters sat across the conference table, looking nothing like the grieving fiancé I'd interviewed 2 days ago. Her eyes were clear, her posture confident. This was not a woman in mourning. Ms. Winters, I said carefully, I thought you might want your own lawyer, not one representing you in exchange for testimony. I do have my own interests to protect, Detective, she replied calmly. Which is why I'm here. I'm prepared to tell you everything about Marcus's death, but I need immunity from prosecution. My instincts were screaming. What exactly do you need immunity from? From being charged as an accessory to murder. Because I helped Marcus fake his own death. The room went silent. Patricia Hernandez slid a document across the table. My client is prepared to provide full testimony about a conspiracy to fake Marcus Reeves' death, a conspiracy that went tragically wrong. In exchange, we want complete immunity and protection. I couldn't speak for a moment. You're telling me Marcus Reeves isn't dead? Oh no, he's definitely dead, Jessica said, and for the first time I saw genuine grief in her eyes. But he wasn't supposed to be. We planned everything perfectly, or so we thought. The locked room, the timing, everything. It was supposed to look like murder so that Marcus could disappear, get away from the people who were threatening him, and release his exposé from safety. But someone else had the same idea we did. Someone who actually wanted him dead. Start from the beginning, I ordered. Everything. Jessica took a deep breath. About 6 weeks ago, Marcus received a credible death threat. Not just online trolls, a real, serious threat from someone connected to Zenith Corporation. They told him that if he published his exposé, he and everyone he loved would be killed. Marcus was terrified, but he also knew the information was too important to suppress. So he decided to fake his death. Yes. He reached out to someone he knew from his military days, someone with expertise in this kind of thing. They came up with a plan. Marcus would stage his own murder in a locked room, make it look impossible, mysterious. The police would investigate, maybe suspect Zenith, but wouldn't be able to prove anything. Meanwhile, Marcus would be in hiding, and his dead man's switch would release all the files. Zenith would go down, and Marcus would be safe to eventually resurface with a new identity. The drone, I said. The injection. That was all part of the plan. Marcus was supposed to inject himself with a drug that would simulate death, slow his heartbeat and breathing to almost nothing, make him appear dead for several hours. His military contact provided it, said it was used by intelligence agencies for deep cover operations. The drone was meant to be a red herring, something investigators would eventually find in the security footage to add to the mystery. I was supposed to discover his body after enough time had passed. But something went wrong. Someone switched the drugs, Jessica's voice broke. Instead of the simulation compound, Marcus injected himself with tetrodotoxin. Real poison. He died for real, alone in his apartment, thinking he was going to wake up in a few hours and start his new life. Who switched the drugs? Who knew about the plan? That's what I need protection to tell you. Because the person who knew was someone Marcus trusted completely, someone he never suspected would betray him. She paused, meeting my eyes. It was Ethan Marsh. Ethan. But he came to us, claimed he was being framed. All part of his act. Ethan was the one who convinced Marcus to fake his death in the first place. He introduced Marcus to the supposed military contact, helped arrange everything. But Ethan was working for Zenith the whole time. They paid him to sabotage the plan, to make sure Marcus actually died. Patricia Hernandez slid another document across the table. These are financial records showing payments from Zenith Corporation to Ethan Marsh, routed through multiple shell companies. $250,000 in total. I stared at the documents, my mind reeling. If Ethan was working for Zenith, why did he come to the precinct claiming to be in danger? To control the narrative, Jessica explained. He knew you'd eventually trace the financial connections, so he came to you first with a story that made him look like a victim being framed. He probably planned to disappear or be killed, too, another victim of the conspiracy, deflecting suspicion away from himself. Where is Ethan now? That's the problem. He's in the wind. As soon as he left the precinct yesterday, he vanished. We think he's realized that you're getting close to the truth. I pulled out my phone and called Rodriguez. Put out an APB on Ethan Marsh. Consider him armed and dangerous, wanted for questioning in the murder of Marcus Reeves. And get me the address of his last known location. We're going to find him. But even as I gave the orders, I knew we were still missing something. Jessica's story explained how Marcus died, but it didn't explain everything. Why would Zenith Corporation go to such elaborate lengths? Why not just make it look like an accident? Unless there was something else, something bigger that I wasn't seeing yet. Jessica, I said, Marcus's dead man's switch. You said someone entered the code to stop it from triggering. Who had access to that code besides Marcus? Her face went pale. Only 2 people. Me and Ethan. And you didn't enter it? No, I swear. I was waiting for the files to be distributed, waiting for the evidence to go public. When nothing happened, I thought maybe Marcus had been wrong about the timing, or that the system had failed. I never imagined someone had manually stopped it. So Ethan stopped the switch, which means he now has access to all of Marcus's research, all the evidence against Zenith. The full picture was finally coming together. He's not running away. He's going to sell the information back to Zenith, or blackmail them with it, or both. We need to find him before Zenith does, Patricia said grimly. If they get their hands on those files and destroy them, this all ends with Marcus's death being written off as a tragic accident or suicide. Everything he worked for, everything he died for, will be for nothing. I stood up. I'm going to need everything you have on Ethan Marsh. Every location he frequented, every contact he had, every possible place he might hide. And then you're going into protective custody until this is over. If Ethan realizes you're talking to us, you'll be his next target. As we left the law office, my phone rang. It was Marcus Kim, and he sounded excited. Detective, I found something. I've been analyzing the metadata on those files we recovered from Marcus Reeves' laptop. Some of them were accessed remotely yesterday afternoon, after Marcus was already dead. From where? I traced the IP address. It's coming from a warehouse in the industrial district, registered to a logistics company that went bankrupt 2 years ago. The building should be empty. Send me the address. I'm on my way. Part 10, Final Confrontation. The warehouse was exactly what you'd expect, a sprawling, abandoned building with broken windows and rusted metal siding. The kind of place criminals used in movies because it was isolated and forgotten. As I pulled up with Rodriguez and a tactical team, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were walking into something bigger than a simple arrest. Thermal imaging shows 2 heat signatures inside, Rodriguez reported, checking his equipment. Second floor, northwest corner. 2. Who's the second person? Unknown. Could be a hostage, could be an accomplice. We moved in carefully, the tactical team leading the way. The warehouse was a maze of old crates and abandoned equipment, our flashlights cutting through the darkness. Every shadow seemed threatening, every sound amplified in the empty space. The second floor was accessible by a metal staircase that groaned under our weight. At the top, we found a small office space that someone had recently converted into a makeshift workstation. Computer equipment lined one wall, monitors glowing in the darkness. And there, illuminated by the screens, sat Ethan Marsh. Police. Hands where I can see them. I shouted, my weapon drawn. Ethan turned slowly, and I was shocked to see tears streaming down his face. Detective Chen. I knew you'd find me eventually. I'm glad, actually. This has to end. Where's the second person? Thermal imaging showed 2 people in this building. There's no one else here, Ethan said quietly. Unless you count Marcus. That's when I saw it, a laptop on the desk, its screen showing a paused video. Marcus Reeves staring into the camera, very much alive, recorded before his death. Play it, I ordered. Ethan pressed a key, and Marcus's voice filled the room. If you're watching this, I'm dead. Not fake dead like I planned, but really dead. And the person who killed me is probably someone I trusted. I'm recording this as insurance, a backup to my backup. Everything I discovered about Zenith Corporation is stored in encrypted files, and if something goes wrong with my original plan, this video will guide you to them. Marcus's image leaned closer to the camera. The truth is worse than I let anyone know. Zenith Corporation isn't just spying on people through their devices. They've been selling backdoor access to foreign governments, corporate competitors, anyone willing to pay. They've helped authoritarian regimes spy on dissidents. They've enabled corporate espionage that's destroyed businesses and ruined lives. And the CEO, Richard Thornton, orchestrated all of it. The video continued with Marcus providing detailed instructions on how to access his hidden files, where he'd stored physical backup drives, and who to contact to ensure the information reached the right people. When it ended, I turned to Ethan. "Why did you do it? Why did you kill him?" "I didn't." Ethan's voice cracked. "I swear to you, I didn't kill Marcus. I was working with Zenith. Yes, they paid me to spy on Marcus, to report on his investigation. But I never agreed to murder. When they told me the plan to fake his death, they said it was to scare him, to make him back off. I provided them with information about the plan, but I thought they were just going to expose it, ruin Marcus's credibility. I didn't know they were going to switch the drugs. I didn't know they were going to actually kill him. You're an accessory to murder, Ethan. You might as well have injected the poison yourself." "I know." He looked down at his hands. "That's why I came here. To finish what Marcus started. I've been uploading his files to every major news outlet, every law enforcement agency, every watchdog organization I can find. In about," he checked his watch, 10 minutes, "the information goes public. Zenith Corporation will be destroyed. Richard Thornton will go to prison. And I'll spend the rest of my life knowing I helped kill the best friend I ever had." I wanted to hate him, wanted to see him as nothing but a murderer. But looking at his broken expression, I saw something more complicated, a young man who'd made terrible choices, who'd been manipulated and used, and who was now trying to make amends the only way he knew how. "Who actually administered the poison?" I asked. "Who physically switched the drugs?" "I don't know. Zenith arranged everything through intermediaries. But I can tell you who gave the order." Ethan pulled up an audio file on his computer. "I recorded this conversation 2 days before Marcus died." He hit play. Richard Thornton's voice came through the speakers, unmistakable. "The Reeves problem needs to be permanently solved. I don't care how you do it, just make it happen. And make sure there's no connection back to us." "That's your evidence," Ethan said. "That's how you take down Thornton." The next hour was a blur of activity. We arrested Ethan Marsh and seized his equipment. The moment we confirmed the authenticity of the audio recording, I obtained a warrant for Richard Thornton's arrest. By midnight, the CEO of Zenith Corporation was in custody, his expensive lawyers already working on damage control that wouldn't matter once the evidence went public. The files Marcus Reeves had compiled were as devastating as promised. Within 24 hours, Zenith Corporation's stock had plummeted. Criminal investigations were launched in 6 countries. Dozens of executives were arrested. The surveillance network was exposed and dismantled. Marcus Reeves became a hero in death, his name synonymous with investigative journalism and sacrifice. His fiancée, Jessica Winters, was cleared of any wrongdoing after providing crucial testimony. She started a foundation in Marcus's name, dedicated to digital privacy and security. Ethan Marsh pleaded guilty to conspiracy and accessory to murder. He received a reduced sentence in exchange for his cooperation and testimony against Zenith Corporation. In his final statement before sentencing, he said, "I helped kill the best person I ever knew. No punishment will ever be enough for that." As for me, I closed the case but couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had been lost. Marcus Reeves had tried to protect himself, had planned so carefully, and in the end, it was his trust in the wrong person that killed him. It's a lesson I carry with me now. In every investigation, the most dangerous enemies aren't the ones you expect. They're the ones standing right beside you. 6 months later, I received a package at the precinct with no return address. Inside was a thumb drive and a handwritten note, "Thank you for finishing what Marcus started. The truth matters, even when it costs everything. Nighthawk." I never did find out who Nighthawk really was, the whistleblower who'd started Marcus down this path. Maybe that was intentional. Some heroes need to stay in the shadows to keep fighting. I plugged in the thumb drive. It contained one file, another video of Marcus, recorded just days before his death. In it, he smiled sadly at the camera and said, "If you're watching this, then I'm gone, but my work isn't. The truth has a way of surviving, even when we don't. To everyone who helped, who believed, who kept pushing for answers, thank you. You're the reason journalism matters. You're the reason corruption can't hide forever. Keep asking questions. Keep demanding truth. And never, ever stop fighting for what's right. The video ended, and I sat in the darkness of my office, thinking about Marcus Reeves, about all the victims I'd seen over the years, about the cost of truth and the price of justice. This case taught me that locked rooms can be opened, impossible crimes can be solved, and even the most carefully laid plans can unravel. But it also taught me something else: sometimes the people who seem most in need of protection are actually protecting all of us. Marcus Reeves died trying to expose corruption that threatened millions of people. In the end, his death wasn't in vain. The truth came out. Justice was served. And somewhere, in homes across the world, people were a little bit safer because one man had the courage to ask dangerous questions. That's why I do this job. That's why I'll keep doing it, case after case, no matter how impossible they seem. Because the truth matters. Because justice matters. And because people like Marcus Reeves deserve someone who won't give up until every question is answered and every mystery is solved. My name is Detective Sarah Chen, and this is the story of how I learned that the most dangerous criminals are the ones who make you believe they're keeping you safe. Remember that the next time someone offers you convenience in exchange for your privacy. Remember Marcus Reeves, and ask yourself, what's the real price you're paying? The truth is always worth fighting for. Even when it kills you. The end.